Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Council's Executive. My name's Stephen Conway. I'm the leader of the Council and Executive Member for Housing, and I'll be chairing the meeting. Could I just start with a few normal house rules? Can you ensure that any mobile devices or phones are switched off? And if you are participating via Teams, when you're not speaking, please mute your microphone. Please also note that the meeting is currently being webcast live. Now, for those of you who are in the very small audience in the room or watching online, I want to just introduce you to the rather large cast of characters in front of you. I'm going to start with the officers of the Council who are here to support the Executive. And if I can start over on that side, I don't know how many of you can see in the on the side over there. We've got, first of all, Matt Pope, who's the Executive Director for Adults, Children's and Health. Then George Framelico, who's the Director for Place and Growth. Sally Watkins, who's the Chief Operating Officer. And then Liam Oliffe, who is representing Democratic Services. Now, normally at this stage, I would point to Priya Patel, who's normally the senior member from Democratic Services, who is at this committee. Unfortunately, poor Priya has been struck down with COVID and is unable to be with us. And even more sadly, her father is very seriously ill and also has COVID. So our very best wishes to Priya. I'm sure everyone would want to send their best wishes to her and hope speedy recovery. In Priya's absence, we have Madeline, who will be an excellent replacement, Madeline Shopland from Democratic Services. And then we've got the Chief Executive of the Council, Susan Parsonage, the Monitoring Officer and Assistant Director of Governance, Andrew Moulton, and the Chief Finance Officer, Graham Ebers. And online, we have Helen Watson, that's HW. She's the Director of Children's Services. David Allen, who's the Head of Comms. And then we've got Madeline and Liam appearing again. RM in the middle, I think, is Rebecca Margetts, who will be asking a question shortly. Okay, I'm going to ask the executive members to introduce themselves rather than you have to hear more from me. So I'm going to start with Rachel.
Good evening, I'm Rachel Bishop-Firth. I'm Executive Member for Equalities, Inclusion and Fighting Poverty.
Good evening, I'm Ian Shenton, Executive Member for Environment, Sport and Leisure.
Good evening, I'm Lindsay Ferris. I'm the Executive Member for Planning and Local Plan.
Good evening, I'm Imogen Shepherd-Bay. I am the Executive Member for Finance.
And I'm going to say good afternoon, because by my reckoning, 5:30 is still the afternoon. And I'm Prue Bray, and I'm the Executive Member for Children's Services and Deputy Leader of the Council.
Good afternoon, my name is Paul Fishwick. I'm the Executive Member for Active Travel, Transport and Highways.
Good afternoon, turning into evening. I'm David Hare. I'm Executive Member for Health, Wellbeing and Adult Services.
I'll hedge my bets and just say hello. I'm David Cornish, Business and Economic Development Exec Member.
Thank you, everyone. Could I just ask now that we turn to, I don't think that apologies are necessary because I think we have a full house. So if we move on to declarations of minutes of the previous meeting. Is everybody happy that these minutes accurately represent the previous meeting? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's unanimous. I have to sign these. If we can now move on to declarations of interests. Are there any declarations of interest relating to any item on this evening's agenda? I've reverted to the evening again. Okay, thank you. I'm just going to make a very brief statement. This evening's executive will be followed by the council meeting, at which we will be approving the budget for 2024-25. The budget papers presented to the executive and then to council are the culmination of many months of hard work, which started very soon after the last budget was set. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the Chief Finance Officer, the Chief Executive, the directors, and all council staff, my executive colleagues, and the cross-party Community and Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which examined the budget in detail. Rarely, if ever, can there have been a more transparent budget process. And I'm pleased to say Chris Johnson, the chair of the Community and Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, has joined us this evening, and he'll be presenting his committee's report on that process before we consider the budget papers in this evening's agenda. Before we do any of that, we're now going to go on to public question time, and we have two public questions. The first is from Peter Humphreys. Peter, good evening, good to see you. Would you like to ask your question?
The council is continually stating that it's in financial difficulties. So one wonders why it's not capitalising on the current high price of scrap metal. Council officers and councillors can hardly fail to notice the amount of council-owned scrap metal littering our streets. I'm referring in particular to the number of posts erected at residents' expense to which signs have never been attached, likewise where signs have long since fallen off or become unreadable. This is not just a current problem, it goes back many decades. Some of you with long memories may remember when David Lee was the leader of the council. At my prompting, he had 15 redundant posts removed from a short stretch of London roads. Things haven't changed and a new generation has appeared. There's a particularly large cluster of abandoned posts in the vicinity of Dinetrees roundabout at the junction of the North Woking Distribution Road and Warren House Road. They've been there for circa 5 years. Are council planning to ask for public suggestions of what to hang on the posts? Are they going to sell them, or are they going to do nothing and let the posts rust gracefully?
Thank you, Peter. I think your question is directed to Paul.
It's to me, yes.
Paul's going to answer it.
Thank you, Peter, for your question. We're aware of several poles on our network which currently have no signs on them. Many, if not all, the ones you have highlighted are related to development works undertaken by developers. A change in road layout and speed limit will change the requirement for signs on the network, for example, on the North Woking Distribution Road junction with Binfield Road roundabout. The introduction of the roundabout has seen the speed limit amended. In these instances, the officer team are working with the developers to ensure such poles are removed. Others, which you have highlighted further along the North Woking Distribution Road, were installed with directional signs by the developer's contractor. The directional signs were not correct and so were removed. The Borough Council is progressing a signage strategy, and once complete, we'll see the installation of new signs utilising these poles wherever possible, as this saves money and prevents abortive works and costs.
No, it does take 5 years leading to do these sort of things, but fair enough. I would say, though, in most normal organisations, in quotes, there's a hierarchy structure that ensures that decisions are checked by more senior personnel to prevent cock-ups such as these that I've mentioned. And there are many, many more I haven't mentioned. Why does this type of checking not exist at the council? And if it does, why do so many errors keep happening? Have any staff been disciplined or contractors or fired as a result of these costly blunders?
Thank you, Peter. Most of these are changes required by the developers, and staff are currently working with those developers to ensure that these poles are either removed or the signage is corrected on them where they exist. As I said, also we're doing a signing strategy, and that signing strategy will utilise the likes of the North Woking Distribution Road with new signage through there, and that will extend beyond the North Woking Distribution Road as well. Once that signage strategy is completed, then there'll be a new array of signs throughout Wokingham, which connects all of our new roads as well.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Peter. And now the next question is from Guy Granderson. Good to see you again, Guy. Welcome. Would you like to ask your question?
Thank you. Yeah. Upon review of this year's Treasury Management Strategy papers, I can find no reference to approval of the strategy by the Audit Committee. Why is this?
Imogen will be answering.
Hello, quite simply, thank you for your question. The simple answer is that approving the Treasury Management Strategy is no longer part of the Audit Committee's terms of reference. In February 2023, the Audit Committee reviewed its terms of reference in line with the Chartered Institute of Public Finance, CIPFA, best practice, and has set out the position stated in the Local Authority Audit Committee. One of the changes recommended by CIPFA was that an audit committee should have no explicit decision-making role. The audit committee therefore recommended to council amendments to its terms of reference, which included no longer approving the Treasury Management Strategy. This was agreed at full council on the 23rd of March 2023 to come into effect from 23-24 municipal year.
Do you have a supplementary, Guy?
Yes, I do. I must admit that is exceedingly disappointing to hear, simply because even if it is a recommendation from an outside body, as it were, even if it's government, it means now, if I'm remembering the Constitution correctly, the only oversight of the Treasury Management Strategy is the FSO and the executive member. And that means that democratic oversight is being removed. I'm sorry, I do not find that acceptable. So my question now is, what's being hidden away from everyone else?
Imogen?
Well, it's not quite as simple as that. I agree that, to me, the skills of the people who are on audit are possibly the right people to contribute to this, but we're going with the CIPFA recommendations. The Treasury Management Strategy comes to council. In fact, it's coming to our meeting next. So any councillor who wants to comment on it, that would be an opportune moment to look at it and possibly vote against it if they didn't like it. Hopefully that answers your question.
Nothing in.
Okay, thank you. Right, that brings to an end public questions, but we have a member question from Rebecca Margetts. Good evening, Rebecca.
Good evening.
To see you.
Good evening. How are you?
Would you like to? I'm well, thank you.
Good.
Although it's going to be a long evening.
Yes, I'll be in shortly.
Yes.
My question was to Ian Shenton, Councillor Shenton, but I think Councillor Fishwick might be able to help as well. It's kind of directed a little bit to them both because of the area it falls in. But over the last 2 years, I've been supporting residents on Longwater Lane in Finchampstead who have been experiencing localised flooding and breakdown on the surface of this right of way. Despite my efforts, I have had help from officers. We are no further forward, and after any heavy spell of rain, so I wonder what it's like today, this section of the lane floods again. It is currently in a very poor condition and barely passable in places. Would the lead member commit to meet with me, residents and officers, to discuss a long-term solution to try and resolve this issue? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Both the executive member for Active Travel Highways and Transport and myself are aware that there have been some issues with localised flooding in the section of Longwater Lane that is a public right of way, and also that officers have a site meeting arranged with the parish council to discuss possible solutions. However, it's worth noting the council is only responsible for maintaining this section of Longwater Lane in a suitable condition for its public use as a footpath for pedestrians. Once officers have met with the parish council, we would be more than happy to meet with you to discuss potential ways forward on this matter, whilst balancing our service demands and priorities against the available investment.
Thank you, Ian, and it's good to hear that you've spoken with the parish council. as the local member for the area, and I know David is the local member for the area as well, and he's on the parish council, would I be able to attend that meeting as well? Because I have been working closely with the residents and supporting them, and working with the officers over the last 2 years, the drainage team, to try and get somewhere. So would I be able to attend that meeting too, please?
I'm not sure when it is, but I can certainly raise that tomorrow with the appropriate officers.
Thank you, Rebecca. So we're now moving on to invite Chris Johnson to present the report of the Community and Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee into the budget process.
Thank you for the invitation. The report will be attached to the full council document. I have an extract in front of me, and what I would like to say first, if I may, is to thank all of the officers and the executives that have been involved in bringing all the information to the committee for us to debate and review, and for all the efforts they put in to answer the very difficult and probing questions that have been placed before them over the year. It has been an experience, and I've learned a lot from it. And I think we have actually done the council and the residents proud in what we've managed to present. So the agreement of the medium-term financial plan is one of the most important decisions that every local council authority is to make. And the MTFB sets out funding proposals for all statutory and discretionary services provided by the local authority, and has a direct impact on the lives of residents and service users. That being the case, we have had to deal with a great array of elements being brought to us with the MTPF. And as I said, the information that's been put forward has been quite extensive. And I wouldn't say that everybody has a complete accurate knowledge of everything that's been presented for us. It's taken quite a bit of scrutiny to get through that part. But there are some, the key elements from this would be to say that this public overview and scrutiny of the MTPF has never occurred before. It has been a great eye-opener for everybody to review this, and as we can see from a lot of public interest that's been placed on various social media resources, it has opened a lot of other people's eyes as well, and it's been a very, very well worth effort, and I do hope that it will continue to be so for the next financial years. There were several areas of high risk within the budget, and I must say that the council officers and the officers responsible and the executives responsible for proposing the budget have done an awful lot of very good work to make sure that this council can go forward into the next financial year with a balanced budget and with the risks mitigated where the residents aren't going to suffer.
Thank you very much, Chris, to you for coming to present your report to us this evening, but also for the work that you and your committee did in the budget process. I think it has been the practice in recent years for us to involve overview and scrutiny. I think that started under the previous administration, has been continued under this one. I think it clearly adds value to the process, and it's extremely helpful that you and your committee have asked the probing questions they have. I think we've ended up with a better process as a result of that. So thank you very much. And please pass on our thanks to your colleagues on the committee of all parties.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. If we can now move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is item 97, the Housing Revenue Account Budget. I'm going to present this report as I'm the executive member for housing. I'm sure you know already, but it may be worth just reminding everybody the Housing Revenue Account, or HRA, is a ring-fenced part of the budget. The HRA is funded by the rents paid by council tenants, and the money raised is spent on repairs and maintenance, and helps support HRA borrowing to pursue schemes such as the Gorse Ride regeneration. Last year, we managed to bring in a rent increase below the government cap. At the time, I explained that was something we could not repeat, as the long-term viability of the HRA would be jeopardised if we continue to levy a below inflation increase. This year, we are asking council tenants to pay up to the government's cap in order to protect the HRA for present and future residents. I consulted tenant representatives on the Tenant and Landlord Improvement Panel, and they understand and support the need for the increase. For 2/3 of our tenants, the increase will be covered by an uplift in benefits, but for the remaining third, who are self-funders, we have put aside an extra sum to sustain tenancies in case of financial hardship. I therefore commend the HRA budget to Executive as striking what I think is a proper balance between the need to protect tenants now and ensure the long-term viability of the HRA, on which repair, maintenance, regeneration and expansion of our housing stock depends. There are no questions or observations. Can I ask you to support the recommendations on page 19 of your agenda? There are 7 recommendations, if you can show your support for those. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And we now move on to the next item on our agenda, on page 29. This is the first of 3 reports related to the budget. And I'm going to ask Imogen to present all of these 3 reports, but in turn. So we'll start with number 98, which is the capital programme strategy.
Thank you, Stephen. I mean, as an executive, we are required to recommend this set of documents for the council meeting later on today, so it has to be revised. So here we are, we've got to go through them all, and there are quite a lot of them. This particular document, the Capital Programme and Strategy, provides a high-level plan for our strategy and spending of our capital finances of around 520 million for the next 3 years. It is vital that we continue to invest in our schools and roads, transport and infrastructure, as well as adult social care services. Investing capital in this way, it helps us save money in future, and you can see that there is some borrowing along with government grants and contributions from local property developers. It is vital that we control the amount of money we borrow, as the interest payments are paid from our revenue funding, which is where we have the most difficulty in finding money. I'm pleased to say that under this Liberal Democrat administration, we've been able to control our capital financing requirements and reduce the external borrowing. You can see that there is a number of projects being carried forward from previous years, and this is a situation normal, as there are various reasons for this, but the funding is carried out, but we carry on with this. We do have an approximate 8.5 million shortfall in the funding of our capital programme over the next 3 years, but we're expecting to balance this via reprofiling and income from developers. In the year 21-22 strategy, the capital financing requirement forecast for the 31st of March 2024 was expected to be 678 million. That's excluding the HRA. We are now estimating this to be just 382 million. Bringing our level of borrowing stabilises council and keeps the amount of money we need to borrow under control. It is just one of the examples of the good financial management approach the Liberal Democrat administration has had. We still have much work to do, but I think you will agree that this is much better than the risky, overly ambitious and out of control predictions we were seeing under the Conservatives. The key projects including schools, community centres, shopping facilities, sports hubs, gyms, as well as allotments and open spaces. We're doing various road projects, including building the North Wokingham Distributor Road, which we aim to build using contribution of government. South Wokingham, sorry, developer funding. In Wokingham Town, we are still completing the 55 flats alongside Carnival Pool, and Gorse Ride work is still proceeding on building affordable homes. Further details can be in our capital programme. With this report, we have 6 recommendations to consider. The first one, to agree the capital strategy in Appendix A. Do we want to do them individually, or?
I think we...
Yeah. To agree the 3-year capital programme in Appendix B, noting that approval is only sought for the 24-25 schemes. The draft capital vision in Appendix C, which gives a speculative view of capital investment over the next 5 years. We also need to approve the use of developer contribution funds for the capital projects in Appendix D. Item 5 will allow the Deputy Chief Executive Officer, who is our SBOB 5 officer and Chief Financial Officer, to exercise, where possible, the flexible use of capital receipts policy as issued by the Secretary of State. In item 6, we need to delegate the delivery of the South Woking Distributor Road to our Deputy Chief Executive and the Director of Place and Growth in agreement with the lead members for Highways and Finance. This will be subject to the scheme being fully funded by Homes England grant and developer contributions. Is everybody happy with this lot?
Well,
yes.
Don't worry about whether they're happy with it. I'm sure they are, but perhaps when you finish the next report, I'll turn to the recommendations and ask people to do the recommendations.
Okay.
We
I just what they were.
Yeah, I think we probably don't need to go through them all in turn, but we have explained them very fully.
Sorry.
So is there anybody who wishes to make any comment or observation? If not, can we go to the vote on those 6 recommendations? Those in favour, please show. That's everyone. Thank you. Right. Thank you, Imogen. So we're now moving on to the next report, which is the Treasury Management Strategy, which begins on page 69 of your agenda. And if you would like to present on this, Imogen.
Sure. The Treasury Management Strategy sets out the objectives and procedures and the limits for managing our council finances in the year 24 to 25. This also includes investments. Appendix A outlines the Treasury Management Strategy itself. Appendix B is our prudential indicators, which are designed to ensure that key objectives of the Prudential Code are met and our investment plans are affordable, considered and sustainable. Appendix C is our annual investment strategy for 24-25 and sets out the investment parameters that the Council and Treasury Service will work within making decisions. The SIPFA Code and the DLAP guidance require the Council to invest its funds prudently and to have regard for the security and liquidity of investments before seeking the highest rate of return or yield. The Council investment priorities will be secured first, liquidity second, and then return. Appendix D is our minimum revenue provision policy. The Council is required to set out funds each year to repay our capital spend, also known as capital financing requirement. The current approach is in line with statutory guidance on the MRP and is considered to be prudent. We are asking the Executive to endorse the documents and recommend them to Council.
Thanks, Imogen. So on page 69, you could see on this occasion there's just one recommendation.
Sorry.
So certainly don't need to read that out. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Excellent. Now, before we move on to the next item, I just need to draw to your attention that what we will be discussing and voting on is not the paper in the published agenda, but this supplementary paper. So this is a slightly altered version, which we will be making a decision on. So again, Imogen, if you'd like to.
Sure. Finally, for me, we come to the medium-term financial plan, which outlines our proposed budget for the year 24 to 25 and draft plans for the 2 following years. This covers both our revenue and capital budgets for the next 3 years. The net revenue budget for 24-25 is currently set to 172 million. We're having to make over 16 million worth of savings throughout the year. It will be challenging, but we must protect our statutory services, especially where they protect those who need our help the most. I'm not going to say much here, as I'm sure a lot will be said later in our council meeting, but I'm pleased to say that what we're proposing is a balanced budget for this year. There are a lot of appendices, and I shall leave that one with you.
Thank you very much, Imogen. So we're required to vote on the recommendations as they appear on page 3 of the supplementary agenda. So all those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That's excellent. Thank you, Imogen, for presenting those 3 finance reports relating to the budget. Our next item is not on the budget. It's a housing responsive repairs and maintenance contract, and that appears on page 267 of your agenda. And this, as it comes in my area of responsibility, I'll be presenting. The purpose of this report is to secure your approval for the process of a competitive procurement exercise for the repairs and maintenance contract for properties owned by the council in the HRA and by the council's wholly owned housing companies. The current contract with Reading Borough Council expires in a year's time, and approval of the procurement process will allow us to explore our options. I should stress, however, that this process does not preclude a new contract with Reading. Our tenants' consistently high satisfaction with Reading's service will be an important consideration in any final decision on the new contractual arrangements. So all we're required to do is approve the officer recommendation here that we conduct a competitive procurement exercise. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's everyone. So we've approved that item. We can now move on to the final item of this evening's executive agenda, which is agenda item 102 on page 279 onwards. And this is the establishment of a joint committee, the Berkshire Prosperity Board. This again falls in my area of responsibility. So I will present this report. I have, in fact, reported before to the executive and to council on the work of the Berkshire leaders meetings and the decision made by the leaders to progress towards a formally constituted Berkshire Prosperity Board. With the ending of government support for the Local Economic Partnership, or LEP, the Berkshire leaders decided that to enable the 6 Berkshire councils to continue to benefit from the expertise of the LEP, we should set up a joint body that could commission the LEP to help with particular strategic objectives. The Berkshire Prosperity Board will enable the 6 Berkshire unitaries to have a stronger voice and to bid with a greater chance of success for significant external funding for key projects that affect all or many parts of the county. The likely rewards are great, while the cost of servicing the board will be small and will be met largely from the reallocation of the government funding for the LEP to the 6 councils. For a small investment, in other words, we're likely to obtain a very substantial return. I should add that the Prosperity Board will make decisions on the basis of unanimity, so no council has any reason to fear that its interests will be overridden by the others. The decision-making powers and sovereign authority of each of the 6 unitaries is unaffected. I should also add that it's emphatically not the intention that this provides some kind of backdoor route to the creation of a mayor for Berkshire. None of the Berkshire unitaries supports such an outcome. We do all, however, recognise the benefits of working together to lever in funding that will help us all in difficult times. So I commend this establishment of the Berkshire Prosperity Board to executive and ask you to support the recommendations on page 279 and 280 of the agenda. Could I ask if all those in favour could put their hands up? Thank you. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. And that, I think, is the last item on our agenda. And therefore, I declare the meeting closed.